skip the ad on the TV. Okay. Good morning, everybody. Thanks for joining me on the Thursday morning live training video. This is Nick that I'm on today. Just got on and we're just walking around a few circles. We was waiting for 9 o'clock to get here to get started. I want to thank everybody for joining me. If you would put in the comments where you're watching from. Always interesting to see. Get people from all over the world watching. Today we're going to talk about how to use your hands and your legs to get a more responsive response from your horse. And that's what we're going to talk about. I'm going to walk him a little bit more around, give people a minute or two to join. If you have any questions that you want me to address while we're doing the live, put it in the comments, and we'll talk about those and see what we can get done today. Nick is, I think he's around 10 or 11, not exactly positive. He is a reining horse, and he's won a little bit, done a little bit, pretty nice horse, and I wanted to use him for the demonstrating today. Let's walk a little bit the other direction. I have on Nick my triangle ported bit. The bit has a port shaped like a triangle. I think it's maybe 1 3/4, 2 inches tall with the curb chain. It might be tall enough to put a little bit of contact on the roof of his mouth. Not a lot, but it might be a little bit. That's not really the contact that I'm wanting to work off of today. I always rotate bits around. Last couple of times I rode him in the Mona Lisa, which is a little bit taller port. Lots of sweet iron on the mouthpiece to help encourage softness and salivating. Can you see it on your phone? It's black on. Oh, okay. All right. As long as you got it on your phone. So today we're going to talk about how to use your hands and your legs to encourage a better response from your horse. As I'm walking him around, you see I got him on a pretty loose rein. Once in a while I pick my hand up and got him over, and I'm not using very much, and I can get a pretty good response from him. A little bit of rein, a little bit of leg. And I want to talk about how he got there. So anytime you're going to apply contact, you're going to use kind of a push method. Ooh. You're never going to kind of bang hard. You're never going to tap. It's always going to be a push. Push the horse over here. Push it over there with your legs. Point the head over here. Point the head over to the one direction, over to the other direction. And let's talk about your hands first, because I have more to say about the legs. We're going to talk about the hands first. When I go to make contact with a green horse, and this progresses as the horse progresses, so you have to kind of take what I'm saying and apply it to your horse and the stage that your horse is in. That's going to vary by horse. When you first start with a horse, you're going to take and apply contact, and when the horse does the movement, you're going to release. Apply contact, horse moves, and you release. What you want to build from that, if you always do it that way, your response is never going to get any better than what you saw right there. What needs to happen, the horse needs to respond softer, and the horse needs to respond more broke at the pole so that it learns to carry his face better. So instead of just pointing the nose and releasing, and see then there was never even any really contact on his mouth, what you're going to do from the time you first pick up the rein, you're at 0% contact, 0% pull, until you're pulling 100% as hard as you could pull, which you should never get there. We're going to cover that in a minute. Should take about 5 seconds to get to. So if you contact 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3 Mississippi, 4 Mississippi, 5 Mississippi. That takes a little bit. What you want to do, what you want to allow that horse to do is you want to allow the horse time to understand the contact and respond to the contact, and then you can release the contact. So now I'll take and release. That took like 1 second, a second and a half, and I got a lot of bend right there. In the beginning, when you have a green horse, you're going to be building pretty hard. I probably didn't have but a couple of ounces of contact. I might end up with 5 or 6 pounds of contact in the beginning. I'm going to keep building that contact until the horse responds, and then I'm going to release. I see a lot of people that make that contact, reach a certain amount of pressure, and they hold the pressure, and the horse is leaning on them, and they're leaning on the horse, and you just end up just holding the horse, and that's all that happens. You have to go ahead and pull through the contact, pull through the pressure. There you go. Click on it again right there. Pull through the contact, pull through the pressure. When you apply contact, whether it's with your hands, with your legs, you have to get a response. You have to get the response so you can reward the response. If you don't get a response that you can reward, you're not going to make progress. The horse isn't going to progress in its training. And release. Now, in the beginning, you pull as hard as it takes. You pull through the contact, and then you release the pressure. There's a saying, slow is smooth and smooth is fast. So the more opportunity I give that horse to think about what's coming, he wasn't paying attention that time. The more opportunity I give him to think about what's coming, the harder he's going to try to respond. Let's do the other side. Pull through the contact. He wasn't ready for that side. Let's do that side again. Pull through the contact and release. He was just trying to back up. He really wasn't trying to give his head to the side. Let's come back over here and we'll do that again. And this doesn't matter if you have a leverage bit on, snaffle bit, doesn't make any difference. It's the same thing. Pull your head and release. Do it again. Bend and release. Come back around here so we don't have our back to the camera. Bend, there we go, and release. Good boy. Any questions so far? Okay. So now the way that progresses, you notice I'm kind of pulling out here. I want that to start breaking at the pole and getting some more roundness because I'm working towards leg yields. I'm working towards more progressive stuff. So my hand, instead of coming out here, is going to come more up and release. A little break at the pole and then get soft. And release. I'm being really, you saw there I kind of pulled and I got soft and I wasn't the constant pull like before. As your horse progresses, that's what you're going to advance to, because he gave me a little bit, but because he was kind of resistant a minute ago, I asked him to give me a little more. And release. Just that little bit of a pull and then release. Now, as that progresses, and your horse is going to reach a point to where he's given, but he's not really given with a whole lot of effort. Right there, he kind of gave, but it just wasn't a whole lot of effort. So then what you want to do is go ahead and start pulling a little bit harder through the contact. That's what I did over here. So I'm going to pick up and I'm going to pull soft. And basically what happens here, instead of a gradual 0 to 100% in 5 seconds, I'm going to take that 0 to 100% down to about 3 seconds but I'm going to let it take about 2 seconds for the first 50% and 1 second for the second 50%. It's not going to be a gradual build. It's going to be like a curve that gets tighter as it goes around. The longer it takes him to give, the harder I'm going to pull. So I'll show you. And pull. So I started off slow. I didn't snatch. I started off slow and pull. See his expression change? He's actually trying a little harder. That's what I'm after right here. And pull. And notice the direction I'm pulling now. There. He gave me more, so I rewarded. It wasn't as much of a bend as it was when I was pulling harder, but he gave me more effort. And that's what that, I don't like to use the term pulling faster. I am pulling faster, but I'm still starting with the same amount of pulling slow. Still starting going slow. There. And I didn't have to pull faster. Now you see how I'm getting more action from him with less pull on my part. Let's turn around and work the other side. Okay, I'm using, on him, I have a triangle port bit. It doesn't really matter what bit you have on your horse. Put whatever bit you're using. It could be a leverage bit like I have on him, or it can be a snaffle bit. I put this bit on him because he's a more finished horse. A lot of the work that we do with him is on a more bit. This is a step down in bit. This is Nick. He's a finished reining horse. And I'm using him for demonstrating. So the cow's got his attention over there. So let's demonstrate that on this side. I'm going to start my pull slow, and then I'm going to build a little bit faster towards the end. It's really important that you don't think in your head, start fast, because I have to give him a chance to think about what's coming and then pull a little faster. He gave it just that. I never took the contact up, never took the slack up. I'm going to reward that. That's what we're working towards. That as soon as I pick it up, the head goes. And then pull a little harder. But I make my contact first. I don't snatch. That's a real important part. If you've got any questions about that, put it in the comments. Let's walk him around just a little bit. That's going to encourage him to be softer to your pull. We're going to talk about legs, and then I'm going to talk about encouraging your horse to be softer to the neck rein. Just walk him around, and then we're going to talk about legs. So, because he's a reining horse, I ride him with a good bit of contact. I don't ride every horse with this much contact, but I need this for what we show in. But I need the responsiveness because of what we show in. People have the impression, or a lot of people have the impression, that I'm riding with spurs and I'm riding with contact, with a lot of contact. I'm dulling the horse down. And in reality, if you're doing this right, you should actually be making the horse more reactive, more bendy off of your spurs, more lateral movement. The riding forward, like I was just doing, little squeeze with both spurs, little squeeze with both spurs, squeeze with both spurs. And see, I'm not squeezing a whole lot with the spurs, but I do have my calves on him. And what he's doing here, he's lifting his back, and I'm timing that squeeze when his foot's coming up in the back, and that's getting his back end under him a little more. And it's just a little squeeze, little push. He was wanting to stop there. Just a little squeeze. Done right, this does not dull your horse. Done incorrectly, it will. But this actually will make your horse more responsive. So now let's stop here. And all I did was relax my legs. Didn't say whoa, didn't pull nothing. All I did was relax. That's what I need for my reining horses. So now let's talk about applying the contact on the side to get the horse to be more responsive. It's going to be really similar to how I'm pulling with my hand. I'm going to start my contact slow, and it's going to build through the pressure until I get the response that I want. So let's take and apply my right leg. Don't look that way. And release. Whoa. I got a lot of movement on just that push. I did push kind of firm, but I made the contact. If 1 second is 0% contact, 5 seconds is 100% contact. He moved over on about probably less than half a second with 10% as much as what I could push. That's what we want to build to. Now, when I apply that pressure, I'm not going to just go to a set amount and hold that amount until I get the movement. I'm going to gradually push. If you imagine taking your foot and pushing down slowly on a scale and watching the numbers go up, it should take roughly 5 seconds for that scale to start at 0 and go up to whatever you can push on the scale. That's basically what I'm doing with my foot, with my spur. Leg, and all that was a push. Whoa. All that was a touch. I probably was like a fly touching on him. And that's by building that pressure, that's how you get the horse that responsive. You got a question?
Yes. At some point you start to expecting your hands move down the rein. Is the pre-signal for the question?
Yeah. At times my hand moving down the rein is a pre-signal. A lot of people get really caught up in these pre-signals. Get my rein untwisted. Be careful with giving a pre-signal to what you're going to start doing, because it's a good way for your horse to anticipate what's going to come next. I don't want my horse to perform the action until I ask for the action. So if I run my hand down the reins, I really don't want that horse to move until I either add a little contact or my body goes that direction. So yeah, you could say that's a pre-signal to the contact coming, and his head did go that way because he's really soft. I don't know that I really want my horse that soft. I want to be able to wiggle the reins around. I want to be able to shift around in the saddle. I don't want my horse reactive. I don't want my horse to act until I tell him to act. So be careful getting a pre-signal down really soft. I don't want that too soft. But now, if I say bring your head over, I want to bring his head over. See, because of all this shaking, he did get a little bit dull to the pull. I'm okay with that. I don't want that horse to stay really, really tuned up soft all of the time. There's no way a horse can stay that tuned up its whole life the whole time. It's just not possible. I want to be able to bring the horse up so that he's peaked out when I'm going to show or when I'm planning to go to show. Then I want him kind of dulled down and relaxed the rest of the time. If I try to keep him that responsive all the time, he's not going to be able to maintain at that level. So I'm always building up and bringing back down. I want to make a video talking about taking your show horse and trail riding. I think that's really good for your horse. And there's certain things that you should do, should not do, expect, not expect. And that's going to be coming out in the video soon. So let's go back to legs again. Apply this leg. He's not really paying attention. I'm expecting I'm going to have to push a little harder. Apply leg and push. Whoa. I did have to push a little harder, but notice I didn't pull harder. All I did was push harder, and I got soft when he got soft when he gave me the response. And by pushing harder with him, I'm going to push a little harder, a little bit quicker. I might get to that 100% in 3 seconds, like I said earlier, instead of 5, but that doesn't mean that it's a constant adding of pressure from 0 to 3 seconds. The pressure starts slow and then comes up higher towards the end. That's the important part. It starts off low and then builds towards the end. That's what really gets the horse softer. Another question?
Is this a client horse or personal horse? And some pro horsemen flex their horse right after they get on to you.
So this is a client's horse. This is not mine. He is here to show in NRHA reining, and I do not flex a horse right after I get on. I know a lot of people do. I don't. I want the horse moving forward when I flex. So if you've seen many of my videos, we always work circles and I'm bending. That's my flexing right there. Move forward and bend, move forward and flex. I never flex a horse. Whoa. I never flex a horse standing still. I feel like that gets the horse on his front end, or can get his horse on his front end. Not necessarily always, but it can, which I don't want to encourage. And if I'm going to flex, I'm definitely not going to flex all the way to my foot, because then I'm just getting that opposite shoulder poked out. If I flex in here all the way to my foot, I'm poking that shoulder out. I'm not maintaining the frame that I want to maintain. So this is my flex when I get on right here. And then we can go the other way. When I first get on and I'm walking my circles. Circles gradually get better, and I ask more of the circles. You see the green horses that we get on here, very first thing, very first ride, we walk circles. He's a finished horse, won a good bit of money. Very first thing, we walk circles. So I'm not a big fan of flexing from a standstill. So let's work off of my left leg a little bit. Now, I'm going to talk a little bit about what my hand is doing in relation to my leg, and it's because of the level that he is at. If you notice, just before I put leg on, I'm bringing my hand over to the side just a couple of inches. It isn't much. I'm doing that because I want him to just move the shoulders over, and I don't want a side pass over. And with him being a reining horse, when I do that and I push here, I want to spin. I don't want something else. When I'm doing my reining pattern and I put leg on, I want to spin. I don't want something else. I'm doing that because of what he is. You don't necessarily have to move the hand over just a little bit before you put leg on. Let's get his attention back on me. Hand over and apply a little bit of leg. Whoa. And I built, that was a pretty good bit of contact. I probably had 50 or 60% of as hard as I could push, but I didn't get to that 50 or 60% right away. I got to it at about the 3rd second when he started moving his feet. When I want the horse to go that way, I want him to go that way off soft contact. And if I go hard right away, he's going to expect hard. It's going to take hard. That's where I was talking about, if you use your spurs correctly, you're not going to make them dull. You actually make them better. So I wait until I put soft pressure on and release. That one was just barely touching. But he was that soft off of just barely touching because I went a little harder the last time. If you got any questions about that, put it in the comments. I know that can be a little bit confusing, and I don't know that I'm explaining it as good as could be.
If you have a horse that is more dull, do you increase the pressure?
If I have a horse that's more dull, do I increase the pressure? Yes, I do the exact same thing. What I'm doing to him, I'm going to build 0 to 100% in 5 seconds. There's certain things you can go to, like if it's dull in the mouth, I usually go to that heavy ring snaffle. But it's really not about, the bit helps, but that's really not what it's about. It's about how you use your hands, how you use your legs. Any more questions?
Yeah, I'm not sure if you want to address it. Someone wanted your opinion about that with the big rider, big body.
want my opinion with the Olympic rider. So I'm going to say this. I've gotten a lot of questions about it, and I haven't answered any. I am more offended by all of the people jumping on the bandwagon, bashing her, than I am what she did. What she did is wrong. And there is not a single person out there that has never made a mistake and never done something that they regret. But because hers is on the internet for everybody to see, everybody's jumping out there bashing her. I assume she probably regrets doing it. She might only regret getting caught. I don't know, but that's not up to me. I don't like what she did to the horse, but I am more offended by the people bashing her for what she did. I've got 25 years in law enforcement. I've arrested a lot of people, and no matter what, when I have that person in handcuffs in the back seat of my car, you treat that person with respect. Every person, no matter what they did, you always treat them with respect. And I am more offended by how she's being treated than anything else. Any other questions?
Yeah. A horse dull to the leg, rein first, then leg, or leg to rein for shoulder.
A horse dull to the legs, is it rein first, then leg, or leg and then rein? So that's a good question. And there's not always this or always that answer. Let's talk about what and when. So when I am riding my green horses, always start with the circles, always start with the bend, counter bend exercise. I just put a video on my Patreon, if you're one of my Patreon followers, how that bend, counter bend exercise builds all the way through training to a flying lead change. You got a fly on you? So at this point, when I'm asking this horse to bend, keep going, and move his shoulders, it's not a matter of one first over the other. It's not always a matter of do this one first or do that one first. It's a matter of apply the aid that the horse needs to get the action that you want. If I ask him to tip his nose, I want him to tip his nose. If I ask him to move his shoulder, I want him to move his shoulder. If I'm doing a maneuver, whatever that maneuver is, I'm going to use the aid to put the horse in the position to do that maneuver. Now, later, as things progress, as your horse progresses, and you start working towards getting in the show pen, you want to start doing more with your legs and less with your hands. And if you've done it right all the way through the progression of moving the horse's body, it really doesn't matter. It's not as important as people make it out to be, because I can take and put my neck rein on his neck. Let's see if I can just make his head go that way by putting neck rein on. See there? I never pulled with this one. His head went that way because of this neck rein. Now, the way it gets that way is because I say, let's neck rein, I want more. Okay? It's not a matter of always doing more, always doing one first. Give me your head over here. Now let's neck rein. I want more. So there's no always leg first. There's no always hand first. Now, as he gets further along, your horse gets further along, and I'm showing him, and I want to move over there, I might put a little bit of leg, reinforce it with my hand. I'm still using my hand there. You can't really see it. I moved it about that far. So it's not really a matter of hand first or leg first. It's a matter of using the aid that you want to use, using the aid that you need to use to get the movement that you want. Sometimes you're going to use hand first. Sometimes you're going to use leg first. It's kind of like when you ask your horse to stop. I can ask the horse to stop by pulling. I can ask the horse to stop by sitting and taking my legs off. I'm not always going to do one or the other first. They both need to work, and sometimes I'll use them together. Sometimes I'll use one or the other. So to me, there's no always leg first or always hand first or the other way around. It's you use the aid to make happen what you want to use, what you want to move.
I would like to know why you retired from being a policeman.
Okay, Ty, he asked why I retired from being a policeman. So I love the work, and I'm not actually retired. I I am still an active police officer with the state of Mississippi. I work Marine Patrol part-time because I enjoy the work. I used to work as a deputy sheriff, just regular patrol like anybody else, and I love the work. But I'm almost 60 years old. I can't keep up with these young people anymore. That's a younger people's game, and in certain parts of the country, being a police officer really is a rough job to be in right now. Where I live at, it's not. Everybody around here respects police officers. I've had people walk out of a store and where I'm getting gas in my patrol car and give me a coffee. People around here are really good at police officers. So I'm not totally retired. I still work part-time with State Marine Patrol. So basically saltwater game warden, and I enjoy it. It's a way to keep doing what I do. I started out actually working mounted on a horse, and I was the mounted training officer for our sheriff's department, and really great times. Anything that an officer can do on foot, I can teach you how to do on horseback. Pursuits, handcuff people. I have made arrests off horseback. I broke up fights off horseback. Crowd control. I remember one time we were working a Mardi Gras parade. There was a fight that broke out in the float. Two women actually. Me and another officer came up. I grabbed one. She grabbed the other. Pulled them out of the float, and I had her handcuffed before her feet hit the ground. Uh, I enjoy the work. We also did a program that actually my wife started, Horses on Patrol, where we would take horses into kind of high crime city neighborhoods. And the kids would come out, pet the horse. We had some free McDonald's ice cream cone coupons we'd give them and stuff like that. And got great intel of what was going on in the neighborhood by doing that. And outwardly, it looked like just a neighborhood community relations, but we got a lot of information that way. So I enjoyed that. And I have actually stopped cars and wrote them speeding tickets and running stop sign tickets from horseback. Pretty fun stuff. So let's get back to what we were doing here. Any questions so far? You got some more questions?
Are there any exercises a person can do on the ground to work on hand and leg coordination so as not to
Okay, that's a really great question. Are there any exercises you can do on the ground to work on your hand and leg coordination so that you're not confusing the horse while you're figuring it out? That's really good, and that's something that everybody has to do. You're both legs are doing something different, both hands are doing something different, and it takes a lot of developing coordination. I would do goofy stuff. I would, when we walk, we generally when you're just walking, your left leg and your right hand kind of swings in tempo, kind of like a horse trotting. I would play with that tempo. I would make this hand and leg swing together, this hand and leg swing together, and then I would make my arms swing out of tempo with my legs completely. Just some goofy stuff like that, and patting your head and rubbing your stomach. I mean, that's the kind of coordination you need to develop. And I don't know. I think yoga is probably one of the best things you can do to develop balance and coordination. I know a lot of men aren't too crazy about doing yoga. Aikido, martial arts is really good for developing balance and coordination. If you'd rather do it through martial arts like that, I think that's probably the two best lessons you could go to. Take yoga lessons, take Aikido lessons, as far as helping you develop that coordination. But it does have to be developed for sure.
Gail wants to thank you. She said I was trail riding. Lady got tangled in vines. Be the leader popped in my head. We walked a few steps. I helped off, remove the vines. Your advice saved us from a wreck.
Oh, great. Her horse got tangled in vines, or another horse?
I think the horse's name is Lady.
Okay. So Gail, great compliment, Gail. Gail was trail riding. Horse got tangled in the horse got tangled in vines. Popped into her head. Be the leader. She was the leader to the horse and was able to stop the horse, get off, and untangle the vines. That's great. That is what being the leader is all about. And that's why it's so important to be the leader with your horse. It's not a matter what a lot of people get the impression when somebody talks about being a leader with your horse, they start talking about just kind of physically manipulating the horse and being hard on the horse. That's not really what a leader is. That's not a true leader. A true leader is a leader that people want to follow. A true leader on your horse is a leader that your horse wants to follow. That's a true leader. That's the leader that you need to be. So great to hear that, Gail. So let's take and let's move his back end around. Oh, I know. I was going to go back and talk more about the front end. There's some more about how you pull the reins that I want to talk about. When I started pulling, I was pulling out here. And then you saw me pulling here. Well, the next direction that you should be developing your pull on your horse is to pull here. You're riding your horse two-handed. You're just plow reining, you're pulling out here. You're pointing the horse's head, but you're not doing anything to help the horse's frame and roundness. When I start pulling, let's go forward, Nick. When I start pulling towards my body, you see where his head is starting to go, and I'm getting some head break at the pole. But all the head break at the pole is a symptom. I see people all the time working their reins to get the head down. You get the horse's body where it should be, the head will take care of itself. So as I'm walking the circle, his head is there because of what my legs are doing, not because of what my reins are doing. Right leg, a little bit of right leg, his head went to the left. Now let's go forward. This is all leg. His head is down because his body is round. But to start helping that with my hands, I'm going to change my hand pull so that I'm here up. A lot of people say, well, I've always heard put your hand down. Well, you got to put your hand down. You can't be riding here holding on the horse's mouth. You have to get out of the horse's mouth. But when you're working on teaching your horse to lift his shoulders and round his body, think about the mechanics of how the horse's neck is put together. If I can get him broke at the pole and stretch his neck this way, that's going to pull his shoulders up. Well, I'm not going to get that by pulling my hands back here. But if I pick my hands up here, ask him to break at the pole, that's going to lift his shoulders. The same 5-second rule applies. When you start transitioning to this, I'm going to pick my hands up and pick his back up. I shouldn't have to seesaw the reins or bump his face in. That's wrong. If you're doing that or you see somebody doing it, that's incorrect. The body is what tells the head where to go. And by picking my hands up like this, I'm helping to encourage that roundness. But what's giving me that roundness is my legs picking his back up and the reins helping to pick his shoulders up. Just like that. I can take and swap my reins to one-handed. And I can pick my hand up and get it that way. More leg rather. See, his head, when I first did that, his head didn't go down, it went up. You notice I didn't pull more. What I did is I added more leg. I added some spur and then get soft. That contact that I'm talking about, the building, what I did is when that head went up, I built contact in my legs. Same building contact that I talked about a minute ago. I ask him to round, I get round, I release. I ask him to round, I get round, I release. If he doesn't get round, I'm going to add leg, add spur, add hand, whatever I have to do to get the movement that I'm wanting, and it's just going to keep building that same 0 to 5 seconds, building pressure. It's the exact same rule. It never changes. The rule never changes. The curve changes, like what I've talked about. As I'm wanting a better response, my curve starts off slow and then builds this way. As the horse progresses, my pressure starts off flat, and it's going to build a little quicker, where it's more of a 90-degree turn, where a greener horse is going to be a more gradual turn. Can everybody picture that? Another question?
Yeah. Are you rolling the spurs upwards with the body?
Or am I rolling the spurs upward to lift the body? No. I'm just taking and pushing with my spurs and lifting. Just like that. Touch, lift. See, as I lifted, his head went down. His head went down because the back came up. Touch, lift. That's all I'm doing. Now, I will roll a spur if a horse is green and I reached 100% and I can't push anymore and I still haven't got the response. The next step is to roll your spur. But that is only after I've already reached 100%. I can't squeeze anymore and the horse still hasn't responded. That's really the only time I'll roll a spur. It's just touches. And people get really caught up on what the rows look like. There's cloverleaf rows, there's pointy rows, there's rows with 5 points, 10 points, 20 points. Exactly what that is really not that important. I think these are probably 12 points, and they're kind of rounded on the end. And you would think the rounded on the end would be softer than flat on the end. Actually, rounded on the end is a little bit harder because the pressure is on that point and not on a flat edge. Even though they look softer than a flat spur, they're really not. But what that does, that gives me a little bit more pressure to go to when I reach that 100% so that I don't have to roll. I will roll, but I really don't like to unless I have to.
When you lift the back, does it make the horse stiffer when teaching them to lift the back? And also, is it easier for a longer leg person to round the back than a vertically challenged person due to natural leg placement?
Okay, so let's talk about the second one first. Is it easier for a longer leg person to lift the back than it is a more vertically challenged person? Yes, it definitely is. But if you are a shorter person, doesn't mean it can't be done. You just might have to work at it a little bit harder. I'm not that tall. I'm only 5'5", 5'6". I'm really not a very tall person. And I can't really see where my legs are coming up on the horse's body. My legs almost never go below a horse's belly. And exactly where you're pushing right there doesn't make a whole lot of difference. I've got Alex that's 10 years old. She's like this tall, and she can get on her horse and take her spurs and round that horse's back up. So it's easier when you're taller, but being not as tall is really not that big of a deficit. What was the other question?
When you lift the back, does it make the horse stiffer when teaching?
When you lift the back, does it make the horse stiffer when you're teaching them to lift the back? It shouldn't. It actually should make the back softer, because you're taking a muscle that they're not really used to using that much. They'll use it some, but not really in the way that we're asking them to use it. So no, it shouldn't make them stiffer. It actually should make them softer. And the more you build the contact, just like I'm talking, 0 to 100% in 5 seconds. 5 seconds. The more consistent you are with that, the softer and softer the horse gets. If your horse is getting stiffer, you're doing something wrong.
Can you get roundness without spurs?
Can you get roundness without spurs? I mean, technically, I'm sure you can, but how hard you want to work your legs? I mean, why? I'm going to ride 10 horses a day. I could get it done without spurs, but I'm not going to last 10 horses. And I'm not going to get the quality of the roundness without spurs that I would get with them. I just did a video lesson the other day, and she was working her legs pretty good. And but she wasn't really getting what she was needing to get with her legs. So she was starting to overwork her hands. And that's what you get into when a rider is really not wanting to use spurs. You end up creating another problem. And she was starting to seesaw her reins to get the roundness when she really just needed to put a set of spurs on and lift the back. So can you get it without spurs? You can get it to a point, but you're not going to get it as easily, and you're not going to be able to do that all day long like what we do.
Are you on a reining saddle?
I'm on a reining saddle or a different one. This is actually a ranch cutting saddle. This is the saddle that I use to show cow horse. I have a straight reining saddle. It has a much lower horn. The seat is pretty similar, but it has a much smaller horn. With this being a ranch cutter will let you get your shoulders back further than a regular cutter. So as you see how this is putting my legs are actually in front of my shoulders, which when you talk about equitation, that's not what you want. But when I'm talking about doing a slide and stop, and I got to put my feet forward and get my body this way so I don't go over the dashboard, or if I'm doing a hard turn on the fence and I've got to get my shoulders back and my feet forward, correct equitation ain't going to cut it. I'm not going to be able to get it done. So this being a ranch cutter lets me get my shoulders back a little bit better than straight up and down, and I have a little bit more horn here that I can hold on to when I'm working my cow, because you can't hold a horn when you're doing your cow work.
Has it dried up from the recent hurricane?
Okay, has it dried up from the recent hurricane? We didn't get any storms here. It actually went ashore over towards Houston and went north of us. We got a lot of rain. We have been getting a lot of rain, but it really had nothing to do with the hurricane. We've just been getting a lot of afternoon showers off of the Gulf. And I was actually hoping where the storm came through that it would pull the rain, all the moisture away from us, but it didn't. I do have a horse in training, and they live where the hurricane went, and they said they had some trees down and there was some damage around, but themselves, they didn't have any serious damage.
Ranch cutter saddles are hard to find. Do you have any suggestions where to find them?
Ranch cutter saddles are hard to find. Do I have any suggestions where you can find one? They are extremely hard to find. There's kind of a funny story behind how I got this one. Best thing you can do is go to some cow horse shows, cutting shows, and look for them used at those shows. Those kind of saddles rarely make it to like Facebook website. They rarely make it there, because if you're at a show and I bought a new saddle, all I have to do is set that saddle on a stand at the show and it's going to be gone that weekend. So that's really where you're going to have to go to find the saddle. I'll tell you the story about how I got this one. So, good friend of mine, Rob Huddleston, he's up in Pontotoc, Mississippi, north of me. This saddle maker sponsors him, and he gets a saddle a year. This is a DC cow horse. He gets a saddle a year from DC Cow Horse as part of his sponsorship program. And my parents wanted to buy me a saddle for Christmas, and this was, I don't know, August maybe, something. Do you remember what time of year that was? Probably, yeah, maybe even earlier, maybe July, coming into the end of the year. And his waiting list to get a saddle is like 2 years. But he had just finished this saddle, but he had not shipped it to Rob yet. And I think my wife talked to him on the phone and talked him into shipping this saddle to me. And in the meantime, I found out what happened. Me and Rob's really good friends. And I took a picture of the saddle and texted it to him and said, hey, look at my new saddle. Said, you're going to have to wait a little longer on yours. So that was the story how I got this one. DC Cow Horse, great saddles. They're pretty expensive, but you get what you pay for. I can sit in this saddle all day long and not hurt, and it'll last me all my life. Do I have a video about different saddles and how they sit me? I do remember doing a video not that long ago, and I think it might have been one of our Wash Rack Wednesday videos. I had Nick, in fact, so it hadn't been that long ago. I was setting saddles on him and talking about how each saddle sat on him and how each saddle sits you. And that's Phantom right there. He should be going home this weekend. And Nick had this really confused expression on his face, like, are we going to get saddled up, go somewhere or not? So yeah, I actually just did that video not too long ago. I think it was one of my Wash Rack Wednesday videos. Do I wear custom boots or normal store-bought? So I wear plain Ariat quick draw square nose boots. It's kind of a middle of the line Ariat boot. Actually, my right boot has a hole in it, and I'm tired of my foot getting wet. So I have it on I go through like a pair of boots every 3 or 4 months because they get wore out with what I do. Ordered it from Amazon. It was supposed to get here about 2 weeks ago, and I don't know where the post office delivered them to, but it wasn't here. So I just had to go through the Amazon customer service thing and have them ship me a new pair of boots. This particular boot is really hard to find on the shelf somewhere, and I wear a 10.5 extra wide, so I can't hardly buy it off the shelf. So I usually order them on Amazon, and they're just a Ariat quick draw, I think is what they're called. Can you get the round in the back and a snaffle bit, or do you need to move up to a curb? Yeah, you need to get it started in a snaffle bit, but to keep progressing it, it helps to move to a curb. It's kind of the spur or no spur thing. You can get it to a point, but to get it further, it helps to go to a curb. And I, like him, now that he knows what I'm asking for, I can put him in a halter and get it really nice. And that's why I don't always ride in the same bit every day. We'll rotate around. You might, if you're not really wanting to ride in the curb all the time, use the curb to teach that one thing, and then maybe go back to a snaffle if you want. I have bits in there that I use just to teach certain things. So you should get it started in a snaffle bit no matter what. But to really develop it, it helps to be in a leverage bit.
Really appreciate your videos. Do you have any tips at all for breaking bad habits as a rider, leading things like that? I've noticed I have bad habits after watching you do videos.
So she thanked me for the videos. Thank you. I really appreciate that. And do I have any tips for breaking bad habits from the rider? Most bad habits we do and we don't even realize we're doing. So if you can get somebody out there, uh, maybe a friend of yours that you ride with, and say, hey, I'm trying to work on these things. If you see me do it, would you point it out? Because a lot of times your shoulders will come forward and you don't even really realize it, because that's where you're used to being. I know with a couple of my students that were just switching to riding one-handed, their hand will leak over to one side. That's a bad habit because the horse gets dull to the other side. So there's always bad habits. I have bad habits that I do, and I'll have somebody come out and say, hey, these things need to be fixed. Would you point it out when I do it? So I think that's the best way, is to have somebody point out, hey, you're doing this thing, so you can fix it right then. If you're corrected, just repetitively corrected, repetitively say, sit back, repetitively put your hand down, that kind of thing, you'll create new muscle memory and it'll get better. But it takes that kind of thing, that kind of muscle memory and repetition. The next best thing, if you don't have anybody that could do that, is to set up your phone and record your riding. Ride for a few minutes, 5, 10, 15 minutes. Go look at your phone. Go watch the video. Oh, I was doing this thing. I was doing that thing. Then go set your phone back up again, ride some more, and try to fix that thing. And just over and over. You keep putting yourself where you should be, eventually that's going to become normal. If you're riding with your shoulders forward and that feels like normal, when you get where you're supposed to be, that's going to feel not normal. But if you keep getting there, that becomes your new normal. So that's my tips. It's almost impossible to fix without doing one of those two things. I think that's the two best ways. Either somebody tell you, hey, you're doing this thing just over and over, or video yourself. Okay, so I want to thank everybody for joining me for this live today. If you have any other topics you'd like for me to cover in the live videos, shoot me a message. I try to look through the comments, but there's so many of them that I can't see them all. And if you're not a member of my Patreon, I always answer those messages. When I go to answer messages, that's where I go to first. So I want to thank my Patreon supporters. I put videos there, specific training specific videos, rider specific videos that I don't post anywhere else. My more detailed stuff, that's where it's at. I just posted a video there this morning that talks about how the bend counter bend exercise progresses through several steps, and in the end your horse knows how to lead change, where bend counter bend is the first thing I ask a horse to do when I first get on his back. So that video that I posted on Patreon talks about that. So if you might want to check that out. I post some other stuff there, just some general stuff that's going on. Actually posted a picture there of me at 16 months old on Christmas time. So if you want to see that picture, you can see that. So I appreciate everybody for joining me. Until next time, thank you for watching.